The function inside these input parameters, let me just quickly explain it in brief so that you can know what to set up and what to set to true or false. So, majorly, we use this indicator to code the EA. That is why we have this on file, breakthrough pattern. So, we have input arrow on close bar only. So, if you set this to false, EA will not wait for the pop-up arrow to close before it executes trade. So immediately the arrow pop up below or above the candle, EA will execute the trade immediately. But if you set this to true, once you have your what is it called, your arrow pop up on any bar, whether up or down, EA will wait for that particular bar to close, just like this one. Look at this. So if you set this to false, just like the way I set it now, immediately this arrow pop up, EA will execute the trade immediately. It will execute the trade immediately. But if you set this to true, EA will wait for this particular candle to close and wait for new candle to open before it will execute. It will execute based on this new candle. But if you set to false, it will execute immediately the arrow pop up. That is the function of that one. But the good thing is just to wait for that candle to close, because at times that particular arrow that pop up may disappear immediately, so which can eventually give false signals. So to avoid giving false signals, that is why you need for that candle to close before you um execute your trade. So the next one is input signal debounce. So this input signal debounce, this time it delays time to confirm signal stability. Just like we have some indicators that pop up and disappear immediately. So if the arrow pop up and we set this one to we set this to 300 seconds. So we set this to 300 seconds. EA will wait and count 300 seconds. So if that arrow didn't disappear, so it will recognize the arrow as a valid signal. But within that period, if the arrow disappear within 300 seconds, it will not activate the trade. So another one is input auto detection, or input auto detect up or down. So this will automatically determine which arrow means buy or sell. The reason for this is one of those indicators inside that Baroxo pattern. The execution of that indicator, the way it was coded, is not really it's not really follow the pattern. The one for armor, we all know that armor always an upward arrow, but inside that Baroxo pattern, the arrow there is showing down pattern, which is confusing the EA at times to execute buy or valid sell trade. So that is why this one will analyze it. It will automatically determine which arrow means buy and which arrow means what? Sell. So that's the function of this. So you need to set it to true. So the next one is input auto look back bars. So this check for the historical bars to analyze during auto detection. So the more you increase this, the more it's analyze historical bars. So this one, once you set it up to 200, it will only analyze the last 200 bars to determine the pop-up arrows. So you can change it to 300. You can, based on how you want it to analyze the trade. So, but the region of what is it called? The region of range that we usually use is between 150 to 300 for most time frame. So this one is for buffers. These buffers, the function of the buffer is each of the pattern they have their own unique buffers. So, and all the patterns all together, we have 12 patterns altogether. So that is why we have the set of 12 buffers. So just set this to 12, because the more you reduce the number of buffers, the more you reduce the number of signals that the EA will generate. So just leave it to 12. So because if you leave it to 12, it ensures that all buffers are checked. But if you reduce it, you reduce the chances of all those reversals pattern to pop up signals. So the next one is the input arrow near fraction. So this one just determine the tolerance zone for arrow position classification. So it override what you have on the indicators to embed it to EA, so that EA can analyze the correctness of the arrow and the validity of the arrow. So that is the function of that. Just leave that one to 0.35. And we have input minimum range. So input minimum range. So just set that to 5. Set that to 5. Input strict direction check. So this one will check the direction of that signals. That is, it resolves conflict by choosing nearest extreme high and low to determine the signal. So for this in log direction details, if you want to check what is going on with the with the analysis of the EA, so if you want to check maybe there is error in any of the pattern or any of the functionalities of the EA, just set this to true. So once you set this to true and you go to your expert to check whatever information that is given, if there is any error, you can easily detect that one when you go to your expert. Let me show you. When you go to your expert, this is expert. So once you go to expert, so that log is the one that will be giving you all this information. So if you set that log to input log, where is it? Input log. If you set it to true, so it will just, can you see now? So you'll be getting all the informations, whether to sell or to buy, or if there is any error, this log file will enable you to get any error immediately. If you set wrong, what is it called? Wrong point, or the minimum point you set is incorrect, it will show here. It will show you that the minimum point you set is incorrect. Can you see now? See what is going on here? Fix direction mismatch resolved by trusting dedicated buffers. Can you see? So automatically is try, if there is any error, because of the functions we have set on the buffers, it will check the correctness of the buffers here, input mask and buffer, and it will correct it immediately. So that's the function of that. Input strict direction check. So that's work in line with this input log directions, because it will be checking everything before it executes the trades. And we have you set your inverse classification for sell signal. If arrow placed near, you set it to true. Input buffer 0 for buy. Input buffer for sell is 1. So you leave this swap buy sell to false, and your input buy pattern, if you set this to false, here we only trade sell. And if you set this sell pattern to false, EA will only trade buy, it will ignore sell signals. So that is how it's working. The EA will only execute sell only. It will not execute buy signals. Even if there is valid signal, it's not going to execute it. So the same thing applicable to sell pattern. Sell pattern. So if you set this sell pattern to false, EA will only execute buy signals. It will not execute sell signals. So that is the function of that one. Now, under lot size settings. So under lot size settings, we have our fixed lot size. So if you set your fixed lot size to false, that means EA will work on risk percentage. So if you don't okay, sorry, if you don't want to use fixed lot size, you can decide to turn it off by setting it to false. So once you set it to false, your fixed lot size will not work. So, and if you set use risk percentage to true, that means it's going to be taking trade based on the percentage of your capital A. So if your capital is $100 and you set to 2, you activate this percentage and you set this one to 2. That means what the EA will be doing is every time there is valid signal in the market, it will execute $2 lot size of each of the position because you set it to 2%. So if you mistakenly set this to false, I mean use fixed lot size, and you also set risk percentage to false, EA will not trade. So is either you set this to true, you set this to false, or you set this to false, you set this to true. It depends on your risk appetite. So it all depends on you how you want to set it. So now for this one, minimum lot size to trade and the maximum lot size to trade. So the minimum lot size, whether you are using fixed lot or percentage lot size, is either 0.01 and the maximum is 100 lot size. So any lot size exceeding this 100 lot size, it will not work. So it should be between the range of 0.01 to 100. So that is how that one works. So for our stop loss and take profit, enable stop loss, enable take profit. Now, if you set enable stop loss to true, that means there's going to be a kind of a stop loss that EA will set up for you. And if you enable take profit, it's going to set take profit as well. But I will advise you set your take profit and your stop loss for those that are just for the beginner or the new users of the year or the beginners in all these forex of a thing, because this will guide you. And also, for you to set up these two, you must ensure that you know the point, you know the minimum point to set up and the maximum point to set up. So if you don't know the minimum and maximum point to set up, there will be an issue in the market because EA will not execute trade if the minimum point you set is below. Just like what we have here now, minimum stop loss point is 150. Now, if you look at this is jump 10. If you look at the distance between this and this now, if you set this 150 and you set, I didn't think it's going to work. But for you to check that, you just need to go to your chart. Is this chart? Okay, I think it's chart and properties. So you come to common to check the distance. Can you see now? So the fixed minimum here is 93,491 and fixed maximum is 95,971. So what I usually do here is to round the figure up. This one is 93. I will just approximate this to 94. This one is 95. I will approximate this to 96. That is 94,000 and 96,000. That is what I'm going to set here. Where is it? 94,000. Just to avoid any likely inability of the EA to pick trade. So to avoid that, we need to understand the minimum stop loss point. So our minimum stop loss point, so let's just leave it like this. So now I want to assume that I don't want to use stop loss, so I will disconnect stop loss, and I don't want to use TP. I will disconnect it. So if you are using it, it's going to make use of stop loss point and take loss point. This is the point that you will use to determine your movement. So, and we also have risk reward ratio. So you can set this to 2 or you can set it to 3. So if you set it to 2, that is 2:1. So it's going to take two profits, 2 times of your profit, and you set stop loss to 1. Enable trading stop. So if you enable trading stop will work in line with your what is it called, your stop loss and take profit. And also if you set I'm assuming that I don't want to use trailing stop, so I set it to false. And also your break even. So this ensure that at least when you are in profit, so when the market reverse, maybe there is a sharp reversal in the market, so instead of you losing or having a drawdown, so you either profit or loss, so it will just take you out without any issue of losing your money in the market. So it all depends on you how you want to set it up. Now for account target section, we have input enable account target. Now under this, if you set it to true, so what is going to happen here is if you have like 5 different pairs that is running and the aggregate running profit as each $5 is going to exit all the running trades. Probably you have like 10 running trades now on different instruments. So once you set this up and all those 10 instruments at the aggregate profit and loss of all of them amount to $5, it will exit all the market and wait for another signal. So input close on target. So once you set it up, it work in line with the account target profit. It work in line with what account target profit. And also we have input wait after target. Once EA achieve that what is it called? Once EA achieve that $5 profit, what's going to happen is going to excuse me, is going to wait for another set of another set of signals before it will trigger. Now input target cooldown. Immediately EA achieve $5, it will what I mean what this function does is it ensure that EA wait for signals after 30 seconds. So if there is another signals that pop up within that 30 seconds, EA will not pick that signals. So immediately after those target hits, EA will wait for 30 seconds to ensure that the market stabilize before it execute another trade. So that's the function of that one. So the next one is our multiple trade sections. Multiple trade sections. So under these multiple trade sections, so I will advise if you have maybe small capital, I will advise not to use these multiple sections. But if you're an experienced trader, you can decide to you can decide to test it and see how it works. So the function of this, if you activate enable multiple simultaneous trades and you set this to 5, once any pattern arrow or EA discover a valid signals, is going to execute 5 trades simultaneously. So it's going to execute 5 trades simultaneously. Now, the function of this one is delay between multiple orders, that is milliseconds. So um immediately it execute that multiple entry. So this particular timing will determine the intervals of um the intervals that enable the EA to trigger these 5 trades. So if you set this to 100 milliseconds, so that is going to be the slight difference of time that will be in within the those 5 executed trades. So you can increase, you can reduce it. It depends on your decision. So scale lot size for multiple trades. Now, if you activate this scale lot size of multiple trade and you have your lot size is 0.01. So if you set this one to false and you EA execute 5 trades, so it's going to execute that 5 trades on same lot size of 0.01. But if you activate this true, EA is going to execute the trade on different these 5 trades is going to execute it on different lot size. So now what will now differentiate, or what will enable you to what will enable EA to determine the lot size to use is you need to activate this to true scale lot sizes of multiple trades. So if you check this, this one is 1. If you leave this one to 1, EA is going to execute your trade on the same lot size of 0.01. So all the 5 running trade will be 0.01, 0.01. But if you change this to 2, so what will happen is the first executed trade will be 0.01. The second one will be 0.02. The third one will be 0.04. The fourth one will be 0.08. The fourth one will be 0.16, and the last one will be 0.32. That is how EA will execute the trades. So it's not going to be on the same lot size of 0.01. So that is why you need to understand this thing very well. So if you want same lot size, you set it to false. So, but if you want different lot size execution, you set it to true, and you impute the multiplier you want the EA to use for the execution. So that is how that one works. But if you don't want to use that, you only set it to false. This particular section is only applicable to an experienced trader, not just new traders that is just coming into the market, to avoid crashing your account. So the next one is a trade discipline. One position per symbol. You set it to true. So disable for multiple trades. So this one, if you set it this way, that is how it is supposed to be. So what actually happened on this one is this. We have a situation whereby in within signals, another arrow will pop up and one signal is still running. So what this one will do for us is this. If we are trading jump 10 now and we have a buy signal arrow that pop up, so if another arrow pop up within that period, what will happen is EA will ensure that the one that is running the one that is running exits the market before it triggers another one. But if you set this to false, the implication is this: if one uh, uh, signal is running on jump 10 now, say buy signal, and another arrow pop up again, EA will not close the existing one that is running. It will also execute this one, making two running trade that is running. So if another EA, sorry, if another signal also pop up in that same direction, it will trigger another one, making three. But if you set this to true, EA will ensure that the running trade closes before any other signal comes in again. So that is how that one works. That is the work of that one. So the next one is input reentry cooldown. So before any re-entry, EA will ensure that it takes 10 seconds, not that it will execute trade immediately. Input max slippage. So this one is relating to some brokers. So it will check the slippage of that broker's platform before it executes that particular trade. So under exit logic function, we have input exit after bars. If we set this input exit after bars, if we set it to true and we set this to 10, that is input exit bar count. So EA will execute trade and exit the market once it counts 10 candles. So it now depends on the number of candles you want the EA to pick for you before it exit the market. So we also have input exit bar time frame. Now, if you are using 1 hour, you can leave it as current, or you can decide to be specific and pick that 1 hour. But if you are using that current, the current chart time frame I'm using like this, that is a 1 hour time frame, you can leave it as current, just the way we have it. And we have input exit on opposite present. So this, once we set this on exit on opposite present, that means immediately there is an exit signal, as in there is opposite signal in the market. EA will execute, EA will exit that signals. Now, input reverse on opposite. So if you didn't set this to true, EA will only execute the trade and it will not, EA will only exit the running trade. It will not execute the opposite signal entry except you set this to true. So input reverse ignore cooldown. So this one, just set it to false. Input opposite on close bar only. So you can set this one to false as well. Input opposite the bounce, that is milliseconds. You leave this one to 1002. That is 1200 seconds. Input post entry ignore. This is in default setting. So input ignore same bar as entry. Just set it as false. So this one, leave it the way it is. So if you want arrow to show, input persistent draw on chart, you set this to true. I mean, if you don't want it to show, you set it to false. So that is how all those functions, that is how they work. So if you are not clear with any of these input parameter, just go to your what is it called, your user's manual to check the function, because inside that user manual you can easily see is well explained there. You can easily see the function of each of the functions on the input parameter and how they are working. But if you are not clear with anything, just let me know so I can I can explain in details as well so that you understand how